for another Friday evening. I can't believe these come around quite so quickly, actually, but there you go. We've got another deadline to go. We've got a few people in the chat already. Obviously, it's a Friday night. I always think with a Friday night, most people are probably out enjoying themselves, aren't they? But thank you so much for the people that are in the chat already. We've got lots of questions on school tonight, which would be good to go through. Ron Manager, Paul, evening, mate. We've also got Brian saying, hey, folks. We've got Vicky Maddox as well, saying she's got wildcard FOMO. Yeah. It's one of those things, isn't it? Like when you're on wildcard, you look at everybody else on wildcard and think, I wish I was. When you are on wildcard, there's headaches that come up like Raya. We're going to talk about Raya a bit tonight because he has been a proper headache. He's literally in the stream right now, but he has been an absolute nightmare. Liam Young, evening everyone. Evening, Liam. Thank you so much for joining us tonight as well. Make sure you chuck any of your questions into the chat because I always prioritise those ones. So if you've got any questions, make sure you chuck them in. Brian says it's 4 p.m. here. Lovely stuff. It's literally just hit 9 o'clock here. And I got my boys back tonight, so if I'm a little bit quieter, that'll be why. Ron Manager says, hello, mate. So, we've got a lot to talk about tonight. We've got league update, so we're going to have a look and see how everybody got on in our community last week. Going to have a look to see how everybody's getting on overall, because there's a new leader at the top. Then we're going to be looking at some questions from you guys, going to look at some fixtures, going to look at my wild card and see what my wild card's looking like so far. Although, if it weren't for the Raya injury, I would be locked. But he is injured. Sorry. So there is concern that he could be injured. So I am waiting to see what happens there tomorrow morning to see if we hear any more. I don't think we will. It could be smoke and mirrors. He could actually be injured. He's had no photos in training, but then Arsenal have done this before where they just haven't asked for those photos to be released. So it's an absolute nightmare at the moment. I really wish it was like NFL where you would hear how players are and actually find out whether they're injured or not. But in FPL, in Premier League, obviously that hasn't happened yet. I just wonder when they're going to start thinking about FPL managers. It's disgusting, really. So let's have a quick look and see the FPL Academy and see how we're all getting on. Paul Norris says, hello all. Hello, Paul. Nice to see you here, mate. Another Paul. So for the game week, it is FPL Ron Manager that was top with 81, drawing with Johnny Hotine. Fair play, you guys. 81 this week is absolutely fantastic. If we have a look at Paul's team, FPL Ron Manager, not a bad team at all. Henderson and Conser getting you the goal. Trent with 11, Rogers with 10, Salah captain with 12, but he also had Watkins and Haaland. Fair play, pretty good team there with Smith Rowe as well. Oh, Berg Valley's got on the bench there, I like that. So 81 points from you, my man. Absolutely smashing it. And Johnny Hotine, let's have a look. He had Trent. He had Luis Diaz with 16. What a transfer that's been for you, my son. Palmer with 8. Rogers with 10. Salah with 12. Welbeck with 6. Haaland with 9. Lovely stuff. Up to 320k there for you. And in third place, Paul Norris. This is the week of the Pauls it was last week. Paul Norris with 80 points. Henderson, Gabriel, who've got another goal. Trent, Rogers, Smith Rowe, Salah captain, Wood as well. Wood came on for him for Jota. Absolutely lovely there, up to 132k. So fair play to you three, all in the 80s. Followed closely by John Martin and Caroline as well. I was joint 14th with Aaron and Liam and Vicky. So all of us got 66. Not bad there. I'm just kind of floundering in the middle. I'm going to do a Nacho and try and zoom on up soon. FPL Diz says, sorry I'm late, stick or twist on Bowen. Evening FPL Diz, sorry I'm late, stick or twist on Bowen. If he's actually, I think a lot of people are going to be, well, not a lot of people, but I think he might start to be a little bit popular soon. I don't think I would start with him if you were, say, on a wild card this week, but I've got Lego Mane up here. Let's just find his hop on, hop off. Is that the best one there? Oh, this one. This is the bad boy. There we go. So when we look at West Ham there, Brentford away, I think a lot of people would be targeting West Ham there, but then we've got Ipswich at home. I think, unless you have not got Mbumo, I think I'd probably stick with Bowen for 2 weeks, then move off of him, maybe for game week 8. But if you didn't have Mbumo, I think I'd want to move there. The other player I guess you could maybe target is Semenyo from Bowen, but Brentford and then Ipswich at home, that's not awful. Bournemouth, obviously, they got Southampton at home, but, you know, Mbumo has that tidy fixture, hasn't he? I think if you don't have Mbumo, you'd want to move to him because those home fixtures for Brentford coming up soon, West Ham at home, Wolves at home, Ipswich at home, Bournemouth at home, Leicester at home, it's just ridiculous. So you're going to be keeping Mbumo to like game week 13. So if you can do Bowen to Mbumo, I think that's fine. If you've already got Mbumo, consider Semenyo, but I think I'd probably just keep Bowen just to keep that move in the back pocket. Let's go back onto the game week because we want to see how people are getting on in total. And we have a new leader at the top, John Martin, who hasn't been in the league for that long, but he is smashing it. He's on 382 points. Well done from Australia, who I was very impressed with, by the way. Managed to watch Scoutcast. It's something like 6 a.m. at your place, so fair play to you, my man. FPL Role Manager is in second, 6 points behind, and then 3 points behind him is Paul Norris. It really is the year of the Pauls. Caroline in fourth, Steve Barnett in fifth. Bashir has had a little bit of a drop down there. He's dropped down to sixth. John Hotine, I am in 15th. So I need to start making some moves, but obviously wildcard this week should sort me out a little bit. So fair play to all of you there. Lots of us over 300 points, but we do have Walter Hall, Vicky, Diane and Rob who are yet to hit 300, but fingers crossed they make it this week. Helen says, evening all. Evening, Helen. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. I know sometimes you struggle to get on with us, so thank you so much for joining us. Now, it is obviously the end of August. This is the last one in August. So what I'm going to do is next week, and I'm going to try and get the graphics sorted for this. Next week, I will do the wheel and see if any of you wants to come on with me. So as long as I get the graphics sorted, I'll have one of you on here with me, which I think would be really cool. So I'm looking forward to that. But let me know if you want to do it. I'll put a little poll on school, and if you want to do it, let me know. So let's have a look at some questions then, because I don't think there's any more questions in the chat yet, but we can go through the questions on stream. So, Paul Norris, best long-term goalkeeper solution that isn't Raya or Flecken. Oh, I mean, they are the two, to be perfectly honest. But let's have a look. So, I would say, I mean, Sanchez has got to be considered, although the fixtures from game week 8 to 11 are not kind, but the next two are nice, and Chelsea do seem to be improving a little bit defensively. They are quite hot and cold, and it's whether you can trust them, but Sanchez, I think, does have to be considered. I'm seeing it in a few people's teams at the moment. They're considering Kepa. I don't see that massively myself. I think I'd probably rather go for like a Kirkes and get some upside there. So I don't think I'd be going that way myself. Everton, you could go for Pickford. They've got the fixtures coming up now. I think Flecken and Raya are there for a reason. I don't think they're bad at all. Apart from that, I'm really struggling. Muric, but you don't really want him as your first choice keeper. So I'm struggling after that, to be perfectly honest. Verbruggen's been there, but the fixtures over the next 6 just aren't kind, and I don't think you'd want to be going for Verbruggen there. So I think Flecken and Raya are there for a reason. Sanchez and Kepa are also there. I mean, I think you would want to kind of look for a rotation there, really. Sanchez and Kepa do not rotate very well together. They've got the poor fixtures together at the same time, so I don't think I'd be going that way. But a Flecken Verbruggen double up isn't awful, so maybe still consider that. I know I considered that. I know I mentioned that a couple of weeks ago, and I think Matt went on it, FPL Rank Chaser, so it is worth looking at. The other one is potentially looking at Wolves' fixtures from game week 8 onwards, but that is a little bit further on. Sorry, game week 9 onwards. That's a little bit further on, but do keep in mind Wolves players for game week 9 onwards, because they got Palace, Southampton, Bournemouth, Ipswich at home with some nice away fixtures as well. So someone like Cunha could be worth having a look at. I know he's not a keeper, I'm just kind of getting sidetracked there. Liam Young says, it's September, Andy. God. It is September. I've been at school for a whole month. I meant the end of September. I do apologise, Liam. Paul Norris says, I'm thinking of Sanchez. Yeah, Sanchez isn't a bad shout. It's just, I'm not sure how many clean sheets I'm expecting from 8 to 11. They've got Liverpool away, Newcastle at home, Man United away and Arsenal at home. I mean, that doesn't get much worse, does it? So from 16 onwards, it's fine, but you really want to be picking a keeper now that you're going to want for a while. And obviously, Raya is the one. There's every chance Raya plays. We just don't know at the moment, which is really frustrating. Webby says, evening all. Hello, Webby. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, mate. Really lovely to have you here. Lots of people chatting in the chat, which is great. So, Caroline, Bruno Fernandes, data models love him, but should we? I saw an article today, and it was, should Bruno be dropped? And I was thinking, my God, like this happens every year. But Bruno always does this. He is United's most important player. He's going to play every game. Like there's nothing, no doubt about that. I do think Rashford's a sneaky little shout at the moment. He seems to be coming back into form a little bit, and his numbers are looking slightly better. But if we look at United here, they've got Spurs at home, Villa away. I don't think those are two nice fixtures. Then you've got Brentford at home, which is nice, and West Ham away, which is nice as well. And then fixtures look a bit kinder. But the thing with Bruno is, are you really going to spend money on him when we're trying to scrimp and save, when we're trying to scrimp and save to get Haaland in, to get Saka in, potentially to get another mid to premium midfielder in there as well, and you've got to spend money on Trent, and I don't see how you're fitting Bruno in. I would rather go with someone like a McNeil or Semenyo, rotate them. Rodgers is still there obviously as well, so I don't think I would be going Bruno. He's been nowhere near my wildcard team, and if he's going nowhere near a wildcard team, then I don't think anybody should be transferring him in personally. I love Bruno, but I would much rather go for, say, a Rashford and save the money, but at least the risk isn't quite so bad as a Bruno in terms of how much money you're spending and how much you're not putting into the rest of your team. Brian says, I love Garnacho. I wish he was a pick. Yeah, him, to be fair, I think Rashford's got that left side nailed, and then obviously Ahmad and Garnacho are fighting over that right wing slot. He's giving a lot of faith to Ahmad, and it means that Garnacho's sometimes struggling to get that game time, which is a massive shame because I really like Garnacho too. So just keep an eye on him. If there's an injury, then all of a sudden, especially if there's an injury to Rashford and Garnacho goes out to the left, that's a bit of a game changer there. So just keep an eye on those. But I just don't think I'd be trusting them personally. Cage Paps says, evening all. Cage Paps, how's it going, my man? 10 people in the chat. This is fantastic. So thank you so much for joining us. Caroline, with a seemingly high bat set by referees this year, there are defo less penalties. What impact does this have on our selections, like Eze, Bruno, other penalty takers that I can't remember? It's an interesting one. It seems like there have been less penalties at the moment, but the thing is, you only need 2 or 3 penalties of a weekend and those certain players to be taking them, and it's all fine again. And there will always be those times, especially over Christmas and things, when defences start looking a bit lazy, where there's going to be more penalties and it will just happen. Certain teams will obviously have more penalties as well. So the teams that are higher up the table, like the Cities, the Arsenals, players like that, teams like that, they're going to get more penalties because they score more goals and they spend more time in the opposition box. So I think still going for penalty takers is definitely the way to go. And obviously when you're trying to decide between 2 assets, going for the penalty taker is definitely the way to go still. It just makes such a massive difference. Strikers on penalties I think is massive too. So someone like Chris Wood, I think is still a really good option because he's on penalties. The fact he took his penalty instead of Gibbs White I thought was big, but with the bonus at the moment, having Chris Wood, who's on penalties, playing striker, I think he's got to be in your consideration. The fact Mateta is obviously on penalties as well is big, but he's been struggling for minutes a little bit. But I think you do have to still consider penalties, personally. Dimitro says, if we have no updates on Raya and he remains a doubt, what is better on a wildcard? Raya and Solanke or Flecken and Havertz? Yes, as you were thinking along my lines. Another possible dilemma, in case I go with Flecken and Havertz, is 1, Luis Diaz DCL, or 2, Aina Eze Solanke. Thanks. I think if you have doubts about Raya, and I'm considering this as well, I think you go Flecken Havertz. Personally, I don't like the Gabriel Saliba double up. I just don't think there's enough upside to pay that much money. Gabriel has it, Saliba I don't think does. So I think personally, and it's a shame White is just non-existent now because obviously he's struggling for minutes with Timber. So I think I would be going for Flecken Havertz there. Personally, if you have major doubts over Raya. If you think this Raya things are just a smokescreen, Raya Solanke is the way to go. That's the way I'd be going. But Flecken Havertz, I think, would be the other option there. And then he's saying, do I go Luis Diaz, Calvert-Lewin, or Aina Eze Solanke? I think Luis Diaz DCL there. Makes a lot of sense to me. I like it more than the Aina Eze Solanke, mainly because I've been quite low on Eze this year compared to an awful lot of people. So I think that's personally the way I would go. But hopefully we don't have to do that, and Raya and Solanke are just our options. Fingers crossed. I don't think we're going to hear anything about Raya at all. I really don't. And if that's the case, you either go Raya at a 4.5, which is a lot of money, or you just go Flecken, which I think a lot of people would do. James Williams, alas, I'm rubbish at being available for the Friday shows. You are, mate, it's all right. But my question is this, Ndai, is he a good enabler or what? All right. So if we look at Ndai, so if we go on the actual, if I click on transfers and look at him, So, all players. I can't believe I'm clicking on Everton players, but I mean, their fixtures are ridiculous. If we look at their fixtures, Everton, Crystal Palace at home, they've got Ipswich away, Fulham at home, Southampton away, West Ham away, Brentford at home, Wolves at home. Just lovely for quite a while. I don't have any Everton players in my team at the moment, so I might need to look into that. But if we look at Ndai, there he is, the striker, just 5.4 million. Obviously, the fixtures there, I've just gone through them. He's played, so in the last three, he's played 80 minutes or more in the last three games. So his minutes are definitely going up. He scored a goal against Leicester. In terms of XGI, it's not amazing. It's all about the XG for him. So whether he's getting those chances, 0.26, 0.21, and obviously scored a goal. I think as an enabler, he's not too bad. It's just you need to make sure and use FPL team. So use your planner for FPL team to see whether, this is my old team, to see whether how often you would have to play him, because you don't want to be playing him too much. But could you play him against Crystal Palace? Could you play him against Fulham at home, against Brentford at home? Could you play him in some of those? Because you might look and realise that you're not going to play him ever. And if that's the case, do you just move down to someone like a Stewart who's going to save you a lot of money? So that's the only thing I would say about Ndai. I think he's a nice option. I don't think he's bad. And when you look at those minutes, 80 plus minutes in the last three games, I think is great. And if Calvert-Lewin gets injured, which there's every possibility he does, then Ndai is going to be kind of locked in that role, isn't he? So, yeah, I don't hate Ndai at all. Ron Manager, would the injury to Wolves' new defender make choosing their goalkeeper a bit too risky? It would. Mosquera, that's such a shame that he was injured because he plays so well internationals as well. So, yeah, that is a massive shame, and he could be out for a little while as well. So, yes, that does hurt Wolves. And you look at this week, they're obviously playing Liverpool. It sounds like they're going to have to play some academy players in their team. So, yeah, it's not looking good for Wolves at the moment, but the fixtures are there soon. So we'll have to have a look and see what Gary O'Neill's made of in the next couple of weeks. But yeah, the Wolves keeper, it's maybe not the best shouts, especially not for the first couple of weeks. So yeah, I don't think I'd be going there personally, but it's definitely an option moving forward. Maybe. Andy Robinson, I'm on 2 free transfers. I'm just saving for the sake, no real grand plan, so I'm not against burning one this week. It's not even burning anymore. Would you consider Salah to Diaz, or am I chasing last week's points, or anything that stands out to you? Cheers. I'm Cage Paps, but easy to show team here. No worries, mate. Cage Paps, we saw you there. You're in the chat. Lovely stuff. So, Fleck and Gabriel Lewis Aina, that's absolutely fine. McNeil, Salah and Bumo Saka, that is gorgeous. Haaland, Wood, Solanke. Mate, I would be rolling that every day of the week. I wouldn't be doing Salah to Diaz. I would be rolling that. That is a gorgeous, gorgeous team. I would be rolling that every day of the week. There will be wild cards that aren't looking as good as that. So that is absolutely fine. No, definitely roll. 3 free transfers next week. And 3 free transfers next week, there's not even a lot you're going to do next week. That is a very good team. Lovely stuff. Waiting for you in the chat to go, cheers. Paul Bates, if Raya is definitely out or if Arteta doesn't make it clear, then I think it will be Flecken for me and I might just keep the money in the bank to be able to bring Raya back in a single move as when he is fit. Yeah, that's not a bad shout. I think Jackson is worth having for a couple of game weeks and then I'll probably bring someone in like Calvert-Lewin or Wood. I could then decide whether to spend the money freed up on that move in either defence or to upgrade Morsey, perhaps. Morsey? God, I'm not going to lie, I don't even know who Morsey is. Yeah, I think that is the way. I think keeping the money in the bank to move back to Raya isn't a bad shout. The only thing I would say is after this week, they've obviously got Southampton at home and then Bournemouth away, but then they've got 3 weeks of not great fixtures. Whereas if you look at Flecken and Brentford, in that run, they've got Ipswich and Fulham, and they've also got West Ham and Wolves in the next 2 anyway. Arsenal are a much better defence. Brentford have been targeted, obviously, a bit this year, but the fixtures are looking very, very nice now. I would be tempted to say, if you don't have Raya now, do you really invest in him next week? Southampton at home, I guess, is nice, but if you've got Flecken, he's got Wolves at home. So, and I think you could just play Flecken. So then you've got Bournemouth away. Bournemouth have been very good attacking-wise this year. And then it's Liverpool at home, Newcastle away, Chelsea away. I would say if you don't get Raya now, you don't get Raya until maybe game week 12, personally, because Flecken would cover that anyway, and then you wouldn't have to worry about making that move. So, yeah, I think if you don't get Raya this week, you don't get him for a while because you would get Flecken and the fixtures are there, personally. And the fixtures for Flecken from 9 to 11 are lovely, and then you can just jump on Raya then. So, yeah, I think that's what I would do. Cage Paps, cheers, number one. No worries, mate. Webby, is it mad to consider Edison? Yeah, it's always mad to consider Edison. I think because Rico Lewis is there, he's our cheap option into the defence. Obviously, he's risky. We saw that when he went off on 45 and Gavadio came on. Everybody's risky in the City team. Everybody gets to a point where they consider Edison. He's looking at it now, Newcastle away, and then the fixtures are obviously there. I suppose the biggest thing with City is we're going to want Foden at some point. So if you've got Rico Lewis and you've got Haaland, you're going to want Foden at some point. And he is arguably, well, not even arguably anymore, he's going to be the second best attacker to own for City. So I think leaving that option open is probably the best way of doing it. And also this week, probably not the best week to get them in. Newcastle, they're gonna score because, you know, City like doing that, don't they? But I don't think I'd be going Edison because I want Foden down the line. I think having Saka for the next 2 or 3 and then moving to Foden for game week 9 against Southampton, that's the money game, isn't it? So yeah, I think that's probably why I wouldn't be going Edison. If you don't have Lewis and you didn't want to go Rico, then maybe consider Edison, I guess. But I think Rico's too good value money to not go for it. Webby, lol, yeah. Webby, I wildcarded in 4, to be fair. I have Raya anyway, was just asking for others. No, that's fine, yeah. And hopefully you've got, you know, another keeper as well as Raya, but I doubt it if you're playing for that premium. Brian, you're not going to like my draft, Andy. I have Edison and Lewis. Ooh, nice. Are you benching Lewis this week? Answer in the chat, because I am. So it'd be interesting to see what you're doing, because Newcastle away, I think City concede. So it'd be interesting to see what you're doing with Lewis. Right, let's keep going with the questions. Good questions this week. Ian Padmore, is Rico Lewis worth the gamble? Yes, I think he is. I think with Rodri out now, with Kyle Walker declining, I think Rico Lewis is going to get way more game time. He's going to have weeks he frustrates you, but the numbers he's putting up and what he can do and the potential there, I think he's worth a gamble, personally. He's not going to be 4.5 next year. He's not going to be. He's going to be 5.5 at the least. So, yeah, I think Rico Lewis is worth a gamble, personally. You'll see that because he's in my wildcard. Brian H, here's where I am at the moment for wildcard. Where's my feedback? We're getting hit by a hurricane and power internet has been spotty all day. Not sure I'll make the live. Mate, that's not very nice, is it? So let's have a look. Brian says, I will play Lewis. Liam Young, Brian, great minds think alike, I hope. Well, if it works out, like I said, the after this week, the fixtures are obviously nice, but it's just Foden for me. Got to keep that option open. So here we go, Brian. You got Virginia and Edison. Make sure with Virginia or Matthews, I think it is, they might be going down tonight. So take them out. And if they go down a 3.9, you've got a 3.9 keeper. Do not have him and then watch it go down. Don't do that. Gabriel Mikolenko, great at 4.3. Greaves, Trent Lewis, lovely. Saka, Rogers, Semenyo and Bumo Diaz. Lovely midfield. Havertz, Calvert-Lewin, Haaland. Yeah, absolutely fine. Got nothing wrong with that. Just make sure with Virginia, like I said, you move him out. And overnight, if he goes down to 3.9, you've got another 0.1 million in the bank there. The rest of it, I think, is absolutely fine. With Greaves, I do wonder whether Vandenberg's the better option. I feel like Vandenberg could potentially be a really good player to have in our teams. He's only 4 million. We haven't seen him play in a 4 at the back yet. That's the only thing I would say. If you weren't going Flecken, you could go Collins. Collins is 4.5, but I think Vandenberg is worth a look. It's just we need to know whether he's going to play in a 4 at the back, because in the easier fixtures, that's when we want to play him. So yeah, Brian H, I hope you're okay, mate, with the without the power on the internet. Liam Young, Game Week 6 wildcard. I feel my season starts now after what has been a nightmare start. What is your thoughts on the Man City triple up? Oh, here we go. I feel their fixtures are too good to ignore. Let's have a look. Edison, yeah, look, here we go. He's just chatting in the chat as well about it, wasn't he? Edison, Lewis, Colwill, Trent, and Gabriel, Semenyo and Bumo Salah, Evanilson. Oh, I love Evanilson. I'd love to have him. Calvert-Lewin, Haaland, Carvalho on the bench. This is a spicy wildcard. I like it. Sells on the bench as well. Hudson-Odoi and Feist. I like the spiciness of this one. Semenyo and Evanilson, I really like. Genuinely, I think this fixture's lovely. The only thing I would say about Bournemouth is that after these 2 weeks, Southampton and Leicester, the next 3 weeks you're going to have to probably bench both. So if you're benching both, I'm assuming you're going to have to play Hudson-Odoi and Carvalho. So let's have a look. Forest. Oh, they do have some nice fixtures there when Bournemouth don't, so that's nice. And then who was the other one? Oh, Carvalho, Brentford. Yeah, so it's not the worst to have to bench those two Bournemouth players. And then obviously after that 3 weeks, they get quite nice again. So I don't hate it. It's just whether I'm happy having those two bench players, knowing I'm going to bench them, for 3 of the next 5 weeks. That's the only thing I would say. So, but I do love it for this week. Really, really like it for this week. If Anderson on pens as well. Diane, FPL Diz, says, I want to roll my transfer, but is there anything in my team that looks like an issue I should deal with this week? Let's have a look. You have got Raya and Turner in goal. Oh, Raya. Let's hope Turner plays. Then you got Gabriel, Dean, Trent, Davis, Leaf Davis and Vandenberg, lovely. Bowen, McNeil, Rogers, Salah, Bergval. And then you got Calvert-Lewin, Havertz and Haaland. So I would say the biggest thing here is that you don't have Mbumo. If you look anywhere, I think personally, because look at Mbumo's fixtures. Where is he? Brentford, West Ham and Wolves at home, Man United away, Ipswich at home. You look at West Ham, because we were talking about Bowen, Brentford and then Ipswich at home, but then Spurs and Man United. Over the next 4, Mbumo is easily, with 3 beautiful home fixtures, going to outscore Bowen. I think I'd be going Bowen or Mbumo, personally. I know rolling's lovely, but I would be doing that move, I think. If I was in your position, Raya, if he doesn't play, he doesn't play. You might miss out on 2 points, might miss out on 6. But the potential of Mbumo, I think, is worth the move, personally. Paul Norris, which 4.5 million defender would you pick as a 4th defender to cover Lewis's potential absences? Konsa, Colwill, Mazraoui. Yeah, so it's worth noting Mazraoui, I don't think it's 4.5 anymore. I think it's 4.6 now. But let's just have a look at these ones. So if I go on position defender, this is using FPL team from Peter. Love it. And then sort by price. Right. Ooh, there we go. 4.5. So Mazraoui I do like, by the way, but I think he is 4.6 now. Yeah, he is 4.6. So Konsa I think is safe. I don't think there's anything wrong with Konsa. I know he scored last week, but that's quite rare, I would say. So I don't mind him. He's just a bit of a safe pick. Kirkes is a bit spicy. Their defence is you've obviously got him for 2 weeks, and you're going to want to bench him for 3 weeks. I really like Collins. He's in my current team, unless I go Flecken. I think Collins is a good shout. Nailed on. Good young player, and the fixtures are there, so I don't hate him at all. Colwill again is fine. It's just not much upside there. And Chelsea, the fixtures actually aren't that great. So if you look at Chelsea's fixtures, Brighton and then Forest, lovely, absolutely fine, both at home. But then Liverpool, Newcastle, Man United, Arsenal. So you're going to be wanting to bench him for 4 of the next 6 weeks, you would have thought. And then who else have we got? Ashley Young. No. Leaf Davis, we've mentioned Leaf Davis and obviously Greaves, because the fixtures are nice for Ipswich. Lissandro Martinez, not really in for that one, unfortunately. Ola Aina, I don't hate, because Forest fixtures are quite nice. They've got some really nice home fixtures in the next 5 game weeks. You could conceivably play him 3 or 4 of the next 5 game weeks. And then apart from that, I think that's probably it. Milinkovic has been mentioned a couple of times, and I know Mark Southerns said Milinkovic is probably the best one to go for, so keep an eye out for him as well. But I think that would probably be it for me. Don't think there's any others as I go down. No, the rest of them less than 4.5. So I think for me, I've got Collins, but if you're going Flecken, then I wouldn't go Collins. I think Milinkovic is fine. And I would, Ola Aina, Milinkovic. Don't think I'd go Leaf Davis myself. Colwill is fine as well. Collins, and then Kirkes or Konsa. So those are the ones I'd be going for myself. Right, last but not least, let's have a look at my wildcard. So, my wildcard as it stands, if I go on pick team, is this. Now, this is dependent on Raya, so it can change quite a bit, but I'll tell you how it can change. So I've got Raya in goal, Gabriel, Trent and Collins at the back, Semenyo, Diaz and Mbumo, Saka in the middle, with Haaland, Solanke and Wood up top at the moment, with Rogers, Lewis, Greaves on the bench with Fabianski too. Now, this could change a little bit. There's a few little bits that I like, a few little bits I don't like. The midfield is pretty much locked. I'd be absolutely shocked if that midfield changes at all. The only thing that could change is I do like McNeil. So McNeil is somebody I would really like to get in. But who for? I've got no idea, because I've been singing about Rodgers all year. So I feel like I need to keep him, and the fixtures are quite nice. So I have no Everton, but I don't feel like that's a massive issue. So the midfield's pretty much locked. Haaland's locked in. Solanke and Wood aren't. I'm picking Solanke as more of a... I want him because I want him longer term, and obviously wildcard you're thinking longer term, so I've got him in there at the moment, and Wood as well, who could be Calvert-Lewin, but I do think Wood on penalties with those fixtures coming up, I think I fancy that personally, and he does seem nailed in that team now. Gabriel is locked in. Raya was, but obviously he could become Flecken. If he becomes Flecken, then Collins... I need to get that triple Arsenal in. That's the issue. So if Raya isn't there, then it would be Flecken. And then it's the other Arsenal, and it's whether I get Havertz in. I don't like it myself. That's the only thing. I didn't want their attack. But that could be the best way to go. So it's whether I get Havertz and then move to, say, a Solanke after that. So, yeah, probably be getting Havertz in. And Collins, I don't think I fancy the double up in Brentford defence personally. So Collins would maybe move to one of those 4.5s I mentioned before. So yeah, that's how we're looking at the moment. I don't hate it. I think it's going to be good moving forward. And yeah, we'll just see how it goes. But this will be tomorrow morning. I'll be locking this in early as well, I think, unless we hear anything on Raya. JM, I made it. Hello, mate. Gave you some lovely words earlier, so make sure you go back and watch some of the bits from earlier. Paul Norris, FPL Harry has suggested that Semenyo Rodgers is not a good rotation. When you don't want to play Semenyo, Rodgers also has a bad fixture. Yeah, it's true. And I was looking at this earlier. So Bournemouth obviously have two nice fixtures coming up. Villa, where are they? Now, Villa, I mean, they're not too bad. I'm going to want to bench Semenyo between 8 and 10 potentially. Villa between 8 and 10. I have Fulham and Bournemouth, and then Spurs away. I can see Rodgers getting something in those games. I don't think that's that bad. And then Bournemouth, the nice fixture. I think the rotation's quite nice, actually. And also, the thing is, I know obviously we talk about fixtures an awful lot as well, but Rodgers and Semenyo are just two of the best cheap players you can possibly buy at the moment. So I think it's fine, personally. And looking at that rotation, I don't think that rotation's bad. I don't think it is. Spoke to my Bournemouth mate the other day and said, who's the best Bournemouth player to own? And he said Semenyo without a doubt. He said he's literally their best player at the moment. He's playing out of his skin. He says Evanilson's all right, but he's still quite raw. So I think Semenyo all the way. And I don't think anything's wrong with Rodgers personally. Right, lovely stuff. Just over half an hour. I'll just put it back onto our lovely game week there to see. There you are, John, right at the top of our league. 382 points. What are you at the moment as well? You are 58k. Ridiculous. Oh, I'd love to take some credit, but you're smashing it. Well done, mate. Right, thank you so much, everybody, for joining us tonight. We had loads of people in the chat, which was great. So we had a great little chat here. We also had lots of questions in the FPL Academy on school, so thank you for that as well. I will obviously be chatting with you. I've got my boys tomorrow morning, but I'll be chatting with you as much as possible. Thank you so much, and we will see you all again next week. Bye-bye.